What's up, y'all? I just had a really good visit with a friend who just started in this progression, and she's a little bit lost and confused because all this is so new to her, and completely understand, sympathize, empathize with that. I think a lot of us that have been doing this for a little bit forget what it's like to just be starting out with this stuff, and we take a lot of things that we already understand and know for granted, that we consider common knowledge, and it's not necessarily that with these people, right? And so the reason that I was visiting with this person is because she's just having a hard time and has some questions and is frustrated with the whole process. So she comes in, and by the way, I want to share this because I feel like this is going to be useful for us and for anyone else starting out on this, and I think it's just useful stuff to hear anyway. And so she comes in, and I can tell she's a little bit frustrated, overwhelmed, and she has her notes and she has her handouts and she has her guide, and automatically I sit there and I look at this and I'm like, I can see how someone brand new is trying to sift through this stuff and find answers to questions, and they're like, I don't know what to do or where to find this info, right? One of the first things that came up was salad dressings. And I asked her, I said, what do you think is wrong with salad dressings, or most salad dressings? She's like, the sugar? I'm like, no, not the sugar, because we're not anti-sugar. We do potatoes and sweet potatoes and rice and fruit and even approved desserts and things, so it's not sugar. And she's like, what'd she say? Something else, the preservatives. And I was like, yeah, maybe the preservatives. What's the biggest thing? It's the oils. It's the toxic oils, right? So these oils are extremely inflammatory, right? We're talking about like the vegetable oils and the soybean oils. And they displace the body's ability to use the correct oils. And when you think about what this body is, like this body probably resembles something more animal fat based than it does like soybean oil, right? So butter I can see being beneficial, like eating animal meats and things that have natural fats in them are supportive of this body because it resembles what we are. So that just came up in the beginning, and she had a hard time figuring out where to go to find that. And so in the shopping list, a few pages back, with the specific recommendations of things we like, we have a list of condiments and things and brand names, and there's a website URL there, paulctorino.com/things we like, and that's listed out on all those pages in several different places. But you can also just read the brand name Primal Kitchen, go to Amazon or go to the grocery store and find that. All right, so anything Primal Kitchen is great. So that was good clearing that up, and I also had I guess sympathy and empathy, like looking at someone looking at all this info, and it's kind of confusing, right? So so then we addressed this issue of her in the mid-afternoon. She's just like, she goes, I'm just really frustrated, especially 3 o'clock. I'm just like, I'm irritated, I'm frustrated. I said, well, do you know that has something to do with food, right? And she's like, no, I don't. How does that have something to do with food? I said, well, that's classic blood sugar handling symptoms, or blood sugar dysregulation, or low blood sugar symptoms, right? You ever heard of the term hungry combined with angry? That's what that is, right? So if I have the feelings, especially when I haven't eaten for a little bit, if I have this feeling of irritability, maybe some low energy, but definitely that little irritability, can't focus, very agitated, classic blood sugar handling symptoms, right? So, and she was surprised about that. So then I was like, well, so what do you eat in a day normally? And she's like, well, for breakfast, I'll have 2 pieces of bacon. And then when do you experience your symptoms? And she's like, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm saying, so you're saying that you had 2 pieces of bacon, and then you went all the way to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you haven't eaten yet. She goes, yeah, I thought we weren't supposed to snack. And I'm like, so this is where people get caught up, right? I think most people need to plan in their minds to have 2 or 3 meals in a day. 3 meals if you're brand new starting out. If you don't feel like eating breakfast, that's fine, because she said, I really don't feel like eating breakfast. I'm just making myself eat breakfast because I think I'm supposed to. And I'm like, well, you can move your breakfast to lunch and have lunch and dinner if you feel comfortable with that, or you could have a breakfast, lunch, dinner, and they could be small meals. But she had this idea in her mind that she wasn't supposed to snack, so she was going all this time without eating, thinking it was beneficial. And over time, maybe that can be beneficial if your body's self-sufficient and metabolically flexible. But in the beginning, your body is adapting. So, and it's giving you this signal of irritability and aggravation because it's trying to tell you to get some energy from somewhere. And so that's when you need to eat, or we want to head that off and eat a little bit before that. So what we talked about was, and what she felt really comfortable with, was making her breakfast in the morning because it's easy to make, and then having that when she gets hungry around noon, and then that's kind of mitigating that mid-afternoon crash that she's experiencing, and then she has dinner, right? I thought that was a good strategy for her. But if anyone else is experiencing some kind of symptoms like that, like a little bit of hangry irritability, you might want to think about having 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And if you're even within that breakfast, lunch, dinner still experiencing some irritability, then that's just your body trying to resist making this new energy. Now, another great discussion that we had around this is, as she was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and then we talked and she felt a little bit better about the whole thing. I kept saying, what are we trying to do here? Think about what we're trying to do. We're just trying to eat real food. We're just trying to eat real food. So without even getting too caught up in the whole carbohydrates and numbers of meals things, if you can just get to the point to where you have in your mind that you're only going to allow yourself to eat real food, that's a huge win, right? So if you're eating real food and you're having 3 or 4 meals in a day and you're having a little bit of fruit here and there, that's a heck of a lot better than eating processed food and bread and stuff like that. And remember why we're doing this. Why are we trying to do this? We want to be healthy. We want to be healthy because when we find health, we find ourselves, we lose weight, we feel great, we find happiness, like all kinds of things change. Our entire life transforms because of this. But this is where it starts. It starts with real food. And we just kept touching on that. Like, what are we trying to do? We just want to eat real food. Keep it simple. We want to eat real food. It doesn't have to be complicated. We don't have to force a lot of things. We want this to be intuitive. We want it to be easy. We want it to be fun. And so she started to get it. She started to understand it. We were also talking about, so she's like, she gets to 2 or 3 in the afternoon. She's irritable. She's frustrated. She feels like she might want to eat, but she doesn't have anything ready or planned. So I think for most people, planning the next day out the day before is going to be beneficial. And when I say planning, it doesn't have to be this super complicated process. All I'm talking about is just sitting down and thinking to yourself, all right, how many meals am I going to eat tomorrow? Pick it. It's 2 or 3, right? If you're struggling with the whole thing, maybe 3 is a good place to start. But regardless, how many meals am I eating? And then what am I going to eat for each one of those meals? And just think about it a little bit. So what am I going to eat for breakfast? I'm going to have some bacon and eggs, I think, right? Well, do I have that in the house? No? Okay, I need to stop by the store. Or what do I have in the house that I could have for breakfast? Okay, so now what am I going to do for lunch? Well, I think most people do really well with the eggs and bacon and sausage and omelets and things in the morning. I think a lot of people struggle with the lunch thing. So what fits the definition of what we're trying to do? If we're trying to minimize the dominant sugars and starches, which we call carbohydrates, to later in the day, maybe midday what we're looking for is something protein and maybe some vegetables, maybe some avocado or something like that, right? So for a lot of people, a piece of meat or some meat, hard-boiled eggs, leftovers, and then maybe some cooked vegetables, maybe a light salad with some approved salad dressing, maybe half an avocado or something like that. But just sitting and thinking about that is what we're looking for, because then it will force you to ask the question, well, what can I have? What am I supposed to have? What do I have? What's available? What do I need to go to the store for? So it kind of starts that whole process. And it just comes from thinking about what am I going to do tomorrow, right? And then same thing for dinner. I think dinner for most people is a little bit easier than everything else because that's when everyone gets together and you do your traditional cooking. I think breakfast for most people is easy because it's the typical, stereotypical eggs and bacon and sausage and omelets. I think midday a lot of people struggle, but if you're to the point to where you don't feel like eating breakfast and you want to skip breakfast and have your first meal midday, then make your breakfast and eat it midday. Have your bacon and eggs midday. Have your bacon and eggs whenever the heck you want. You can eat those things. They're not just breakfast foods. But again, putting a little thought into what your day is going to look like goes a long way. It doesn't have to be complicated. You're just taking a little bit of time to pre-think things out just a little bit, all right? What else did we talk about? She goes, what time is dinner supposed to be at? And I'm like, what time do you want it at? Eat whenever you want. That's the beauty of what we're doing here. Eat real food and eat when you feel like it. Eat when you plan on it. Think about it a little bit. Let it happen, right? So you can eat dinner at 5. She was like, we eat at 7 or 8 or 9. I'm like, that's perfectly fine. That's great. Right? There's no set rules with this. We want it to be somewhat intuitive, within this basic framework. So, and I think the biggest thing that came out of this was she was frustrated because she felt like she should know better or should understand better. And so she was really disappointed in herself. And I was like, why are you disappointed in yourself? She's like, because I'm not doing it right. And I'm not sure I fully understand what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was like, that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing. A big part of this progression and just our way of doing things for a lifetime is understanding that I have to go through this process to figure this out now, because if I don't figure it out now, when am I going to figure it out, right? It is a learning process. When I first came into CrossFit, I didn't know how to do anything, but I would never get disappointed at myself for not knowing how to do something that I didn't know how to do, right? It takes doing exactly what we're doing right here, which is learning, going out, trying it, not beating yourself up about not getting it right. It's really about celebrating in the fact that you're trying to do it, celebrating in the fact that you're making the effort and you're not going to give up with it. That's the most important thing, is that you're committed to, no matter what, I'm going to keep tinkering with it, keep trying. And some days I'm going to get it all right. Some days I'm going to think I'm going to get it right. And then I learn a little bit later, I'm like, oh shoot, I wasn't doing that right, but it's fine because I was trying to do my best with it. And that's what this is all about. And before you know it, a couple months down the road, 6 months, a year down the road, you're going to be a master at this. You're going to be a master at your food. But it starts with just trying to do what we're doing and understanding, because it's new to you, you're not going to get it right, and you're not going to fully understand it until you get into it and tinker with it. I remember the first time one of my clients made Bobar salad. She thought it was the most complicated looking thing in the world, and then she made it. 2 times later, she's like, oh my God, it's the easiest thing in the world. She can't believe that she didn't have something like this in the past, right? It's the same thing with anything else. Everything from a distance, before you understand it, before you do it, everything new looks really complicated and overwhelming until you do it. And then when you do it, it starts to make sense. You start to figure things out. It starts to figure itself out, but you just have to be committed to tinkering with it. All right. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, just send it our way. We're here to help. We want people to succeed and see some results. And this is a big learning process. So, all right. Love you guys.